The Zarantine fleet hung in Jupiter's orbit, a swarm of sleek warships dwarfing the lone human vessel that approached. Admiral Thul's laughter echoed through the command deck as he surveyed the pitiful resistance. "Shields down," he ordered, contempt dripping from his words. "Let them see how futile their efforts truly are." On board the experimental warship Vengeance, Sean Clark's fingers danced across the control panel. His eyes, hardened by years of loss and determination, fixed on the readouts before him. The weapon he'd spent 5 grueling years developing hummed to life, its energy signature building to a crescendo. The year was 2162. Earth's colonies lay in ruins, scattered across the solar system like broken dreams. Sean's mind flashed back to that fateful day in 2157 when the Zarantine Empire launched their assault on Mars. He'd watched helplessly as his home burned, the screams of his fellow colonists forever etched in his memory. Now, as the sole survivor of that massacre, Sean carried the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. The United Earth government had gambled everything on this mission, on the weapon he'd created in the depths of a secret underground facility. Admiral Thul's voice crackled over the comms, taunting the human ship. "Your persistence is almost admirable, humans, but even your most advanced technology is nothing more than a child's toy compared to the might of the Zarantine Empire." Sean's jaw clenched. He thought of the countless human outposts destroyed, the billions of lives lost to Zarantine aggression. His finger hovered over the activation switch. In that moment, he carried the hopes and fears of every surviving human. The weapon surged to full power. Sean took a deep breath and pressed the button. A blinding wave of energy erupted from the Vengeance, washing over the Zarantine fleet. Ship after ship disintegrated, their unshielded hulls offering no resistance to the cascading destruction. Thula's laughter turned to screams of disbelief as his mighty armada vanished into atoms. In mere minutes, the battle was over. Where once floated a fearsome invasion force now drifted only debris and silence. Sean exhaled, his body trembling with a mix of exhaustion and disbelief at what he'd just accomplished. A distress signal pinged on his radar. Among the wreckage, a single escape pod had survived. Sean maneuvered the Vengeance closer, his sensors confirming what seemed impossible. Admiral Thul had survived. As Sean prepared to retrieve the pod, conflicting emotions warred within him. The desire for vengeance burned hot in his chest, urging him to leave Thul to his fate. Yet the rational part of his mind recognized the strategic value of such a high-ranking prisoner. With gritted teeth, Sean activated the tractor beam. As Thul's pod was drawn into the Vengeance's hold, Sean pondered the uncertain future that lay ahead. He had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The Zarantine Empire would not take this defeat lightly. As Earth's lone defender turned his ship homeward, Sean Clark carried with him not just a prisoner, but the first glimmer of hope humanity had seen in 5 long years. The game had changed, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Vengeance's engines hummed as Sean guided the ship through Earth's atmosphere. His grip tightened on the controls, acutely aware of the Zarantine admiral secured in the hold below. As the sprawling megacity of New Geneva came into view, a mix of trepidation and triumph churned in Sean's gut. Upon landing, a swarm of heavily armed soldiers surrounded the ship. General Zhao, a stern-faced woman with close-cropped gray hair, strode forward as the hatch opened. Sean stepped out, blocking the entrance. "With respect, General, I need to brief you on the situation first." Zhao's eyes narrowed. "This isn't a negotiation, Clark. That creature is our best chance at—" "At what?" Sean interrupted, his voice steady. "Torturing information out of him? I have a better way." For the next hour, Sean argued his case in a secure briefing room. He detailed his plan to build trust with Thule, emphasizing the potential long-term benefits. The room buzzed with heated debate, but Sean's recent victory lent weight to his words. Finally, President Evelyn Carter raised a hand for silence. "You have 2 weeks, Clark. After that, we do this our way." In the days that followed, Sean found himself in a sterile medical bay, watching as doctors tended to Thula's injuries. The Zarantine's iridescent scales gleamed under the harsh lights, his 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession. "Why do you bother with this charade?" Thula growled, wincing as a nurse adjusted an IV. Sean pulled up a chair. Because I want to understand. As Thul's condition improved, Sean spent hours by his bedside. They talked of battles fought, of distant worlds, of the vastness of space. Slowly, a picture emerged of a once great civilization driven to desperation. Our son is dying, Thul explained one evening, his voice uncharacteristically soft. We expand or we perish. In another part of the facility, Earth's brightest minds pored over the Zarantine wreckage. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of propulsion research, burst into Sean's quarters one morning, her eyes bright with excitement. We've cracked their FTL drive, she exclaimed. But the shields, we're missing something crucial. Sean nodded, a plan forming in his mind. He spent the next day with Thule, carefully steering their conversation towards Zarantine defensive systems. The Admiral, either not noticing or not caring about Sean's true intentions, spoke at length about the intricacies of their shield harmonics. That night, as Sean relayed the information to Dr. Tanaka, a wave of guilt washed over him. He was using Thule, manipulating the trust they'd built. But wasn't it for the greater good? His internal conflict deepened when Dr. Ilara Voss joined the team. Brilliant and empathetic, she approached Thule with genuine curiosity rather than fear or hostility. Fascinating, she murmured, examining a scan of Thule's cardiovascular system. The way your secondary heart regulates blood flow? It's ingenious. Thule preened at the compliment, and Sean noticed a softening in the Admiral's demeanor. For the first time, Thule seemed to view a human as an equal. As the days passed, Sean found himself caught between two worlds. In briefings with military brass, he argued for patience and diplomacy. In quiet moments with Thule, he sought to understand the Zarantine perspective. And in stolen conversations with Ilara, he grappled with the moral implications of it all. We're making real progress, Ilara insisted one evening as they shared a late meal in the cafeteria. Thule's starting to see us differently. If we could just... A klaxon cut her off mid-sentence. Red emergency lights bathed the room as a voice boomed over the intercom. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Sean sprinted to the command center, his heart pounding. General Zhao stood before a holographic display, her face grim. Long-range sensors have detected a massive Zarantine fleet entering the solar system, she announced. We estimate less than 72 hours before they reach Earth. The room erupted into chaos. Voices shouted for immediate action, for deploying their new weapons, for unleashing everything they had against the coming threat. Sean's mind raced. They weren't ready. The new shields weren't perfected. The diplomatic channels hadn't been opened. Everything was happening too fast. Zhao whirled on him. Enough of your misguided sympathy, Clark. That monster's people are coming to wipe us out. We need to strike first and strike hard. And then what? Sean countered. We destroy their fleet and they send another? And another? This isn't sustainable. President Carter, who had been silently observing, stepped forward. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Clark? Sean took a deep breath. Let me take Thule to meet the incoming fleet. He can act as an intermediary, open a dialogue. It's a risk, yes, but it might be our only shot at long-term peace. You have 24 hours to make this work, Carter said finally. After that, we launch everything we have. As Sean hurried to Thule's room, his mind whirled with possibilities and pitfalls. He had one chance to convince a former enemy to save them all. The true test of everything he'd worked for was about to begin. Sean's footsteps echoed through the corridor as he raced toward Thule's room. The klaxon's wail faded, replaced by the pounding of his own heart. He burst through the door, startling the Zarantine admiral. We need to move, Sean said, his voice taut with urgency. Earth's in danger, and you might be our only chance at averting disaster. Thule's four eyes blinked rapidly, processing the sudden shift. What's happening? Before Sean could respond, the door slammed open again. General Marcus Steele strode in, flanked by a squad of heavily armed soldiers. His face twisted with disgust as he glared at Thule. Seize them both, Steele barked. The alien dies tonight. Sean's mind reeled as the soldiers surrounded them. He locked eyes with Thule, a silent understanding passing between them. In a fluid motion, Sean grabbed a nearby medical tray and hurled it at the nearest soldier. Thule, despite his weakened state, lashed out with surprising speed, his clawed hand connecting with another guard's face. Chaos erupted in the small room. Sean ducked under a swing from steel, driving his shoulder into the general's midsection. They crashed into the wall, medical equipment clattering to the floor around them. "Clark?" Dr. Alara Voss's voice cut through the commotion. She stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with shock. "This way!" Sean didn't hesitate. He grabbed Thula's arm and pulled him toward the exit. Ilara led them down a service corridor, the sounds of pursuit growing distant behind them. "What's going on?" Sean demanded as they ran. Ilara's voice was breathless. "Steele's staged a coup. He's taken control of key installations, declared martial law. He's hell-bent on wiping out the Zarantine. Diplomacy be damned." They rounded a corner and nearly collided with a small group of soldiers. Sean recognized Lieutenant Chen, one of the few who'd shown support for his diplomatic efforts. The expanded group made their way to a secured hangar bay. Inside, a sleek scout ship sat primed for launch. Its experimental design incorporated some of the Zarantine technology they'd reverse-engineered. "It's our only shot," Alara explained as they hurried aboard. "Long-range capabilities, advanced stealth systems, and a prototype of your weapon." Sean took the pilot's seat, his fingers flying over the unfamiliar controls. The ship hummed to life beneath him. As the hangar doors began to open, a barrage of weapons fire peppered the hull. "Hold on!" Sean shouted, punching the throttle. The scout ship shot forward, streaking into the night sky. Behind them, the sprawling complex that had been their home for weeks shrank into the distance. Sean's grip tightened on the controls as he pushed the ship to its limits, breaking free of Earth's atmosphere. Once they'd achieved a stable orbit, Sean turned to assess their situation. His heart sank as he saw Ilara slumped in her seat, blood seeping through her fingers where she clutched her side. "I'm fine," she said through gritted teeth, but the pallor of her skin told a different story. Sean's mind raced. They needed to intercept the Zarantine fleet, but Ilara needed immediate medical attention. He looked at Thule, who was studying the ship's systems with keen interest. "You said your people have advanced medical technology," Sean said. "Can you help her?" As Lieutenant Chen helped Ilara to the makeshift medical area, Sean plotted their course. The long-range sensors showed the Zarantine fleet's position, a menacing cluster of signals steadily approaching Earth. Over the next several hours, Sean divided his attention between piloting the ship and assisting Thule with Ilara's treatment. The Zarantine's knowledge, combined with the limited human medical supplies they had on board, seemed to be making a difference. Ilara's condition stabilized, though she remained unconscious. "Your kind are surprisingly resilient," Thule remarked as he adjusted a makeshift bandage. Sean allowed himself a small smile. "So I've been told." As they worked side by side to save Ilara's life, Sean felt the last barriers between them begin to crumble. They shared stories of their respective worlds, of the challenges both species faced. For the first time, Sean saw genuine regret in Thule's eyes as he spoke of the war. Their moment of understanding was shattered by a proximity alert. The scout ship shuddered as weapons fire grazed their shields. The Zarantine fleet had detected them. Sean raced to the cockpit, his hands flying over the controls. The ship's advanced stealth systems had failed to completely mask their approach. Now they were in the crosshairs of a furious armada. Sean's world narrowed to the view screen before him and the controls under his fingers. He weaved through the barrage of energy weapons, the ship's hull groaning under the strain. Each near miss sent a jolt of adrenaline through his system. "We need to establish communication," Sean shouted over the din of battle. "Thule, can you bypass their systems?" The Zarantine admiral was already at work, his clawed fingers dancing across an auxiliary control panel. "I'm attempting to use an old command frequency. If it hasn't been changed..." Suddenly, the weapons fire ceased. A tense silence fell over the cockpit. "I've broken through," Thule announced. "We have an open channel to the fleet commander." Sean took a deep breath, steadying himself. This was the moment everything hinged on. He looked at Thule, then at the unconscious form of Elara in the makeshift medical bay. The weight of two civilizations pressed down on his shoulders. "This is Sean Clark of Earth," he began, his voice clear and steady. "I come with a proposal that could save both our species." Before Sean could respond, Thule stepped forward. "Halt your attack, Commander. This is Admiral Thule. The situation is far more complex than you realize." "Explain yourself, traitor," the Zarantine commander finally replied, his voice dripping with venom. Thule didn't flinch at the insult. "Our sun is dying. You know this. But what you don't know is that the humans possess technology that could save our world. We've been wrong about them, about this war. There's another way." As Thule spoke, Sean watched the sensor readings closely. The Zarantine fleet remained in attack formation, but they hadn't opened fire. It was a start. The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. Sean's hand hovered over the weapon controls, ready to make a last, desperate stand if diplomacy failed. Finally, the Zarantine commander's voice returned. "You will be escorted to our flagship. Any deviation from the designated flight path will result in your immediate destruction." Sean exhaled slowly, feeling the tension drain from his body. They had a chance, however slim. As he guided the scout ship toward the massive Zarantine flagship, Sean's thoughts turned to Earth. He could only hope that cooler heads would prevail, that Steele's coup would be short-lived. But for now, his focus had to be here, on this fragile opportunity for peace. The Zarantine flagship loomed before them, its imposing silhouette filling the view screen. Sean steeled himself for what lay ahead, knowing that the real challenge was only beginning. The massive vessel dwarfed their small scout ship, its hull overflowing with weapons arrays and sensor nodes. Sean guided their craft toward the designated docking bay, acutely aware of the escort fighters flanking them on all sides. As they touched down in the cavernous hangar, Sean turned to his companions. "This is it. Everything we've worked for comes down to this moment." Dr. Voss, still pale but determined, checked her medical kit. "I'm ready." A stern-faced Zarantine official approached, flanked by an entourage of advisors. "I am Supreme Commander Zaxler. You will follow me to the War Council chambers. Any deviation from our path will be met with lethal force." Sean inclined his head respectfully. "Understood, Commander. We appreciate your willingness to meet with us." As they were led through the winding corridors of the flagship, Sean took in every detail. The ship's architecture was a blend of organic curves and sharp angles, utterly alien yet hauntingly beautiful. He couldn't help but marvel at the engineering prowess it represented. Zaxler took his place at the head of the council table. "Speak quickly, human. Why should we not obliterate your planet this very moment?" Sean stepped forward, his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. "Because doing so would doom both our species. We have the means to save your world, to end this war not through destruction, but creation." Murmurs rippled through the council as Sean delved into the specifics of the plan. Dr. Voss stepped in, her expertise lending weight to Sean's proposals. "Our analysis of Zarantine physiology has revealed compatible biochemical pathways," she explained, bringing up complex molecular diagrams. "We can adapt Earth's flora to produce nutrients vital to your people's survival." The council peppered them with questions, probing for weaknesses in their plan. Sean and his team answered each query with confidence, their preparation evident in every response. As the discussion intensified, an urgent alert cut through the chamber. A young Zarantine officer burst in, his scales pale with alarm. "Supreme Commander, we're under attack. The human fleet has launched a massive assault." Chaos erupted in the war room. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing the unfolding battle. Sean watched in horror as human ships unleashed salvos of energy weapons, their signatures matching the prototypes he'd helped develop. "No," he breathed. "Steele, what have you done?" The unstable weapons tore through space, their effects catastrophic and unpredictable. Zarantine ships exploded in brilliant flashes, while others drifted powerless, their systems overloaded. But the carnage wasn't one-sided. Human vessels suffered similar fates, consumed by the very forces they'd unleashed. Sean's mind raced. He turned to Zaxalor, who was barking orders to his fleet. "Commander, listen to me. Those weapons are unstable. If we don't act fast, they'll destroy both our forces." "Because I designed those weapons," Sean admitted, "and I know how to stop them." A tense silence fell over the chamber. Sean could see the conflict in Zaxalor's eyes, the ingrained distrust warring with the desperate need for a solution. "Speak," Zaxalor growled. Sean outlined his plan rapidly, gesturing to the holographic displays. "Your shield technology, combined with elements of our weapon design, we can create a defense system capable of neutralizing these energy waves." He turned to Thule. "Admiral, you've seen our shield prototypes. Can your engineers adapt them quickly?" Thule's expression was grim but determined. "It's possible, but we'll need to work fast." Zaxalor studied Sean for a long moment, then nodded sharply. "Do it. But know this, human. If this is a trick, you will not live to regret it." As they raced against time, Dr. Voss made a startling discovery. Her analysis of Zarantine biology had revealed an unexpected compatibility with certain earth plants. She rushed to Sean, her eyes bright with excitement. "Sean, look at this," she said, showing him a complex biochemical diagram. "We can adapt Earth's flora to produce nutrients vital to Zarantine physiology. This could solve their resource crisis." Sean's heart leapt. It was another piece of the puzzle, another reason for their species to work together. But there was no time to celebrate. The battle raged on, and their modified ships were ready for deployment. Sean found himself at the helm of a hybrid vessel, leading a joint human-Zarantine task force into the heart of the conflict. The ship hummed with power, its systems a seamless blend of two worlds' technologies. As they engaged, the effectiveness of their modifications became clear. The enhanced shields absorbed the chaotic energy of the malfunctioning weapons, redirecting it harmlessly into space. Ship after ship, both human and Zarantine, was saved from destruction. The tide of battle turned. The remaining combatants, seeing the success of the joint force, began to stand down. Steele's reckless gambit had failed, but at a terrible cost. As the fighting subsided, Sean received a transmission from Earth. Lieutenant Shen's face appeared on the screen, looking haggard but relieved. "Sir, you did it," Chen said. "News of your success is spreading. The public's turned against Steele. We're staging a counter-coup as we speak." Sean allowed himself a moment of relief, but he knew the real work was just beginning. He turned to Zaxalor, who had witnessed the entire exchange. "Commander," Sean said, "I think it's time we discuss that alliance." Zaxalor's expression was unreadable, but there was a new respect in his eyes. "Indeed, human. It seems we have much to learn from each other." As they began to lay the groundwork for a formal partnership between their species, Sean felt a presence at his side. Dr. Voss stood there, her face flushed with triumph and something more. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Sean realized their shared ordeal had forged a bond deeper than he'd ever expected. Together, they turned to face the view screen, where Earth and the Zarantine fleet hung suspended in space. Two worlds, once on the brink of mutual annihilation, now stood at the threshold of an unprecedented alliance. But as Sean looked out at the stars, he knew their greatest challenges still lay ahead. Convincing a war-weary humanity to embrace this newfound partnership would be no easy task. And beyond that loomed the monumental undertaking of saving the Zarantine homeworld. Yet as he felt the warm presence of Dr. Voss beside him and saw the newfound respect in Thule's eyes, Sean allowed himself to hope. They had achieved the impossible once. Perhaps together they could do it again. Again. The gravity of their mission burdened immensely on Sean's mind as he guided the diplomatic vessel through Earth's atmosphere. "Entering final approach," he announced, his voice tight with tension. "Dr. Voss, Admiral Thule, prepare for landing." The ship touched down on the tarmac of the United Earth Government's headquarters in Geneva. As the engines wound down, Sean caught his first glimpse of the welcoming committee through the view screen. A sea of faces, many twisted with anger and fear, greeted them. Protesters waved signs denouncing the alliance, their shouts audible even through the ship's hull. "Well," Dr. Voss said, her face pale but determined, This should be interesting. They disembarked, flanked by a phalanx of security personnel. The cacophony of the crowd hit them like a physical force. Sean's eyes darted from face to face, searching for any sign of imminent threat. Sean shook his head. No, Admiral. This is exactly why we need to be here. They were ushered into a large auditorium where the United Earth Government's Council awaited them. The tension in the room was palpable as Sean stepped up to the podium. Members of the Council, citizens of Earth, he began, his voice echoing through the chamber. I stand before you today, not just as a representative of humanity, but as a bridge between our two species. Over the next hour, Sean laid out the details of the alliance. He presented holographic simulations of the terraforming technology, explained the potential for resource sharing, and emphasized the mutual benefits of cooperation. As he spoke, he could see the doubt in many faces slowly giving way to curiosity and even hope. But skepticism remained. A council member stood, her face etched with lines of worry. Mr. Clark, how can we be certain this isn't some elaborate trap? The Zarantine nearly annihilated us. How can we trust them now? Before Sean could respond, Dr. Voss stepped forward. If I may, she said, her voice calm but authoritative. She activated a holographic display showing complex molecular structures. This is a breakthrough we've made in adapting Earth's plant life to produce nutrients vital for Zarantine physiology, she explained. But the process works both ways. We've discovered compounds in Zarantine biology that could revolutionize our medical technology, potentially curing diseases we've struggled with for centuries. A murmur of interest rippled through the chamber. Sean saw a spark of hope ignite in the eyes of many council members. As the session concluded, Sean felt a glimmer of optimism. It wasn't a resounding victory, but it was a start. Weeks passed in a blur of meetings, public forums, and late-night strategy sessions. Sean and his team worked tirelessly to address concerns and build support for the alliance. Slowly, public opinion began to shift. One evening, as Sean pored over reports in his temporary office, Dr. Chen burst in, his eyes alight with excitement. Sean, you need to see this, he said, activating a holographic display. We've successfully integrated the Zarantine shield technology with your weapon designs. Look at these test results. Sean studied the data, his fatigue evaporating as he realized the implications. This could change everything, he breathed. As news of the technological breakthrough spread, support for the alliance grew. But challenges remained. Reports from the Zarantine homeworld were troubling. Political unrest was growing, with an anti-alliance faction gaining power. Admiral Thul's face was grim as he delivered the news via holographic communication. I must return home, he said. If we cannot stabilize the situation, all our work may be for nothing. Sean nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle more heavily on his shoulders. Go, Admiral. We'll continue our work here. As Thul departed, Sean and Dr. Voss redoubled their efforts. The joint terraforming project became their primary focus, but their initial optimism was short-lived. The crops are failing, Dr. Voss reported, her voice strained with exhaustion. The genetic modifications aren't taking hold as we expected. The plants are dying faster than we can adapt them. Sean stared at the wilting test specimens, his mind racing. They needed a new approach, something bold. Mars, he said suddenly. We need a more extreme environment to push our research further, Sean explained, his excitement growing. Mars is perfect. Its harsh conditions will force us to innovate faster. The proposal met with resistance from the United Earth government, but Sean persisted. Finally, after weeks of debate and negotiation, the Mars Outpost project was approved. As construction began, Sean found himself working closely with Dr. Voss. Late nights poring over data, shared meals as they discussed project logistics, quiet moments of triumph as they overcame each new challenge. A bond began to form between them, deeper than mere colleagues. One evening, as they watched the first modular habitats being assembled on the red Martian surface via live feed, Sean turned to Alara. The soft glow of the monitors illuminated her face, and he was struck by the intensity of her gaze, the commitment in her eyes. She turned to him, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Yes, we are," she replied, her hand finding his. But even as progress was made on Mars, new threats emerged on Earth. Colonel Victor Hayes, a decorated veteran of the war against the Zarantine, began spreading anti-alliance propaganda. His message of fear and isolationism found a receptive audience among those still traumatized by the conflict. Sean watched with growing alarm as Hayes' influence spread. Supply shipments to Mars were delayed, then sabotaged. Public opinion began to swing back against the alliance. Sean nodded, his mind focused. "I'll go to Mars myself if I have to. We've come too far to fail now." The weight of billions of lives settled on Sean's shoulders. He made a decision that he knew would be controversial. "We're going to accelerate the terraforming project," he announced to his team. "We'll implement our latest innovations directly on the Zarantine homeworld." Dr. Voss's eyes widened in shock. "Sean, that technology isn't proven yet. The risks are necessary," Sean finished firmly. "We're out of time, Alara. This is our only chance." As they began preparations for this high-stakes mission, reports came in of attacks on Alliance facilities across Earth and Mars. Colonel Hayes and his extremists had launched their most aggressive move yet. Sean stood in the command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the unfolding crises. The future he had fought so hard for seemed to be crumbling around him. He looked at Dr. Voss, saw the doubt and fear in her eyes, and knew that his decision had strained their relationship to the breaking point. But there was no time for regret or second-guessing. With humanity and the Zarantine both on the brink, Sean steeled himself for the battles ahead. The fate of two worlds now rested in his hands. A priority transmission cut through his thoughts. Admiral Thula's holographic form materialized, his four eyes blinking rapidly in distress. "Sean, the situation here has become critical," Thule reported, his voice crackling with static. "Food riots have broken out in major cities. The anti-alliance faction is gaining support by the hour. If we don't find a solution soon, I fear all our efforts will be for naught." Sean's heart made. "Understood, Admiral. We're working on a solution. Hold on as long as you can." As the transmission ended, Dr. Voss burst into the command center, her eyes alight with excitement. "Sean, you need to see this," she said, pulling up a holographic display of complex molecular structures. "Our team on Mars has done it. We've created a hybrid crop that can thrive in harsh environments and produce nutrients for both humans and Zarantine." Sean studied the data, his mind racing. "This could be the answer we've been looking for," he murmured. "But how long until it's ready for full-scale implementation?" Dr. Voss hesitated. "That's the thing, Sean. We need extensive testing to ensure its safety and efficacy. We're talking months, maybe even a year." Sean shook his head. "We don't have that kind of time, Alara. The Zarantine homeworld is on the brink of collapse." He made a decision, knowing full well the risks involved. "We're going to bypass the standard protocols, prepare for immediate full-scale testing on the Zarantine homeworld." Dr. Voss's eyes widened in shock. "Sean, you can't be serious. The potential consequences are a risk we have to take," Sean finished firmly. "Assemble a team of our top scientists. You'll oversee the operation personally." As Dr. Voss left to make preparations, her face a mask of disapproval, Sean turned his attention to the logistics of transporting the new crop. His plans were interrupted by a series of urgent alerts flooding the command center's screens. "Sir," Lieutenant Chen called out, his voice tense, "we're receiving reports of coordinated attacks on Alliance facilities. It's Hayes and his extremists." "Damage report," Sean demanded, his mind already formulating a new strategy. Chen's fingers flew over his console. "The attacks have crippled our ability to produce and transport the hybrid crops, sir. We've lost nearly 70% of our capacity." Sean's eyes scanned the command center, settling on a holographic display of the Zarantine fleet still in orbit around Earth. An idea formed in his mind. "Lieutenant, contact Admiral Thule. Tell him we need to repurpose some of their warships." Sean's voice took on a note of unyielding commitment. "We're going to convert their cargo bays into makeshift greenhouses." Over the next 48 hours, Sean oversaw a frenzy of activity. Zarantine warships were hastily retrofitted, their cavernous holds filled with grow lights, hydroponic systems, and precious seedlings. The hybrid crops, still largely untested, represented the last hope for the Zarantine homeworld. As the final preparations were underway, Dr. Chen approached Sean, his face a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Sir, we've made an unexpected discovery with the integrated shield technology," he reported. "We can modify it to create a weather control device. It could potentially alter the Zarantine homeworld's climate, making it more suitable for the hybrid crops." Sean's eyes lit up at the possibility. "Excellent work, Doctor. Implement it immediately." As the flotilla of repurposed warships prepared for departure, a distress signal crackled through the command center. The transmission was garbled, but the fear in the sender's voice was clear. "This is Europa Colony, under attack. Zarantine forces. Reject the alliance. Need immediate assistance." Sean felt the weight of command settle heavily on his shoulders. The Europa Colony had remained neutral during the war, and now they were paying the price. But diverting forces could jeopardize the entire mission to save the Zarantine homeworld. After a moment of agonizing deliberation, Sean made his decision. "We'll split the fleet," he announced. "Lieutenant Chen, take a third of our ships to assist Europa. The rest of us will continue to the Zarantine homeworld." Dr. Voss, who had been silently observing, stepped forward. "Sean, we can't afford any delays. The situation on the Zarantine homeworld is deteriorating by the hour." "I know the risks, Alara," Sean replied, his voice tight. "But we can't abandon those colonists. We have to prove that this alliance means something." As Chen's ships peeled away towards Europa, Sean's reduced fleet pushed on towards the Zarantine homeworld. The journey was tense, with the crew working around the clock to nurture the fragile seedlings growing in the converted cargo bays. As they approached Zarantine space, long-range sensors detected a group of ships moving to intercept them. Sean's heart sank as he recognized the energy signatures of Zarantine warships. "It's the anti-alliance faction," Admiral Thule confirmed via holographic transmission. "They're demanding we turn back or face destruction." Sean knew that a military engagement could destroy everything they had worked for. In a bold move, he opened a channel to broadcast directly to the Zarantine people, bypassing military frequencies. "People of Zarantine," Sean began, his voice steady despite the tension coursing through him. "I come to you today not as an enemy, but as an ally. We bring with us the means to end your suffering, to restore your world." As he spoke, images of the hybrid crops and data on their potential flooded Zarantine communication networks. Sean watched the sensor readings anxiously, hoping his gambit would pay off. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the intercepting ships began to stand down. Messages of support flooded in from the planet's surface as the Zarantine people, desperate for a solution to their crisis, put pressure on the anti-alliance faction to allow the mission to proceed. With the immediate threat neutralized, Sean's ships entered the Zarantine atmosphere. As they descended, Dr. Chen activated the experimental weather control device. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Storm clouds formed and dispersed with unnatural speed, and the harsh winds that had scoured the planet's surface for generations began to calm. But as the planet's climate shifted, the ground beneath them began to tremble. Massive earthquakes shook the landing sites, and in the distance, dormant volcanoes roared to life. "The rapid climate change is destabilizing the planet's geology," Dr. Voss shouted over the rumble of the quakes. "We need to stabilize it quickly, or we'll lose everything." Sean surveyed the chaos around him, the sky darkening with ash from the erupting volcanoes, the ground cracking beneath their feet. The hybrid crops, their last hope, swayed precariously in their hastily constructed greenhouses. He turned to his team, grit etched on his face. "We've come too far to fail now," he said. "Dr. Voss, focus on stabilizing the planet's geology. Dr. Chen, work on fine-tuning the weather control device. The rest of us will start planting and cultivating these crops. Every second counts." As Sean plunged his hands into the alien soil, planting the first of the hybrid seedlings, he knew that the next few hours would determine not just the fate of the Zarantine species, but the future of human-Zarantine relations and the stability of their entire region of space. The ground continued to shake beneath him, a constant reminder of the precarious nature of their situation. But as he worked, he allowed himself a small glimmer of hope. They had overcome impossible odds before. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could do it again. Sean's hands trembled as he planted the last seedling, the ground still shaking beneath him. Suddenly, a deafening rumble filled the air, drowning out even the roar of the nearby volcanoes. The earth split open mere meters from where he stood, revealing a chasm that glowed with an eerie blue light. Dr. Voss rushed to his side, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and scientific curiosity. "Sean, look at this. The geological scans are off the charts. There's something down there, something artificial." Before Sean could respond, a massive tremor knocked them both off their feet. As they scrambled to stand, a colossal structure began to rise from the depths of the planet. Its sleek, metallic surface contrasted sharply with the rugged landscape around them. "By the stars!" Admiral Thule gasped, his four eyes blinking rapidly as he approached. "This is no natural phenomenon. It appears to be some kind of ancient defense system." Dr. Chen's voice crackled over the comm system. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy spikes across the planet. Whatever this thing is, it's powering up fast. If we don't stop it, it could tear the planet apart." Sean's mind raced. They had come too far to let everything fall apart now. "Assemble a team," he ordered. "We're going down there to shut it off." As they descended into the depths of the planet, the air grew thick with an otherworldly energy. The walls around them pulsed with strange symbols and intricate machinery beyond their comprehension. "This technology," Dr. Voss breathed, her hand hovering over a control panel. "It's unlike anything I've ever seen. The power readings are off the scale." Their exploration was cut short by an urgent transmission from the surface. Lieutenant Chen's voice was strained as he reported, "Sir, we have a situation up here. Commander Zark and his anti-alliance faction have seized control of several key installations. They're broadcasting messages blaming humans for the planet's instability." Sean's teeth gritted. They were running out of time. "Keep me updated, Lieutenant. We need to find a way to shut this system down before—" His words were cut off by a sudden tremor that shook the entire complex. Dr. Chen's hologram flickered wildly as he shouted, "Sean, you need to see this. The alien system, it's not just a defense mechanism. I think it's tied into the planet's core somehow. If we can reprogram it, we might be able to stabilize the entire world." Hope surged through Sean, but it was quickly tempered by the gravity of the situation. "What do we need to do?" Dr. Chen's expression was grim. "It requires a direct neural interface. Someone needs to connect their mind directly to the alien technology. It's incredibly dangerous, possibly fatal." Without hesitation, Sean stepped forward. "I'll do it." Dr. Voss grabbed his arm, her eyes filled with fear and something deeper. "Sean, no! We have no idea what that could do to you. There has to be another way." As the team prepared for the procedure, alarms blared throughout the complex. Admiral Thule's communicator crackled to life, filling the chamber with the sounds of weapons fire and shouted orders. A breathless Zarantine voice responded, "Sir, Commander Zark's forces have breached the perimeter. They're heading for your location." Thule turned to Sean, his alien features set in steadfast perseverance. "Go. Do what you must. I will hold them off." As Sean approached the neural interface, Dr. Voss worked frantically to modify their equipment. Dr. Chen's hologram flickered beside her, his fingers flying over virtual controls as they integrated human, Zarantine, and alien technologies. "Sean," Dr. Voss said, her voice thick with emotion, "be careful in there. Come back to us." With a deep breath, Sean connected himself to the alien system. The world around him dissolved into a kaleidoscope of light and information. He saw flashes of a long-dead civilization, their hopes and fears, their triumphs and failures. The knowledge threatened to overwhelm him, but he fought to maintain focus. In the physical world, chaos erupted. Admiral Thule coordinated the defense against Zark's forces, using his intimate knowledge of Zarantine tactics to outmaneuver the attackers. Dr. Chen worked miracles with the alien technology, creating non-lethal weapons that incapacitated Zark's soldiers without permanent harm. As the battle raged, Sean delved deeper into the alien system. He could feel the planet's very essence, its core pulsing with energy. With painstaking precision, he began to reprogram the ancient technology, redirecting its power from destruction to restoration. On the surface, the effects were immediate and dramatic. The violent tremors subsided, replaced by a gentle, healing vibration that spread across the planet. The hybrid crops, which had been on the verge of failure, suddenly burst into vibrant life, their roots drawing strength from the newly stabilized soil. Commander Zark, watching from his command center, saw his support crumbling as quickly as the planet was healing. His soldiers, faced with undeniable evidence of the Alliance's success, began to lay down their arms. In orbit, the neutral Zarantine fleet that had saved Europa arrived, their timely intervention a powerful symbol of interspecies cooperation. As news of the Zarantine homeworld's transformation spread, public opinion on both Earth and Zarantine began to shift decisively in favor of the Alliance. Deep within the alien complex, Sean completed the reprogramming. As he disconnected from the neural interface, he staggered, overwhelmed by the experience. Dr. Voss caught him, her arm steadying him as his vision cleared. "Sean, are you all right?" she asked, her voice permeated with concern. As they emerged from the underground complex, they were greeted by a world transformed. The barren, unstable landscape had given way to fields of gently swaying crops. The air, once thick with ash and toxic fumes, now carried the sweet scent of new growth. Admiral Thule approached, his usually stoic features softened with awe. "You did it, Sean. You saved our world." Sean shook his head. "We did it, Admiral. All of us together. And this is just the beginning." As the group surveyed the new landscape of the Zarantine homeworld, Sean's mind was already racing with possibilities. The knowledge he had gained from the alien system opened up new avenues for exploration and cooperation between humans and Zarantine. He turned to Dr. Voss, his eyes alight with excitement. "Alara, what if we could apply this technology to other planets? We could terraform worlds that were once thought uninhabitable." Dr. Voss nodded, her scientific curiosity piqued. "The implications are staggering. We'd need to run extensive tests, of course, but the potential..." Their conversation was interrupted by an incoming transmission. Lieutenant Chen's hologram appeared, his expression grave. "Sir, we've just received word from Earth. Colonel Hayes and his extremists launched an attack on the United Earth Government headquarters. The situation there is critical." Sean's expression hardened. Despite their success here, the fight for lasting peace was nowhere near the end. He looked at his team, seeing the same persistence reflected in their eyes. "All right," he said, his voice steady. "Let's get to work. We have 2 worlds to save." "Save! We have a galaxy to unite." The journey back to Earth was tense but filled with a sense of cautious optimism. As their ship entered Earth's orbit, Sean gazed out at the blue marble below, marveling at how much had changed in such a short time. The Zarantine homeworld was healing, and Earth had narrowly avoided disaster, but there was still work to be done. In the weeks that followed, Sean and Dr. Voss found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of activity. They spent long hours in meetings with both human and Zarantine leaders, presenting their vision for a joint colonization initiative. The data they had gathered from the ancient alien technology on the Zarantine homeworld proved invaluable, opening up new possibilities for terraforming and interstellar travel. "Imagine," Sean said, addressing a panel of United Earth government officials, "a future where humans and Zarantine work side by side to breathe life into barren worlds. We have the technology, the expertise, and most importantly, the shared will to make it happen." Dr. Voss stepped forward, her holographic display flickering to life. "Our simulations show that by combining our technologies, we can reduce terraforming times by up to 60%. The first world we've identified for this project is HD 985C. The room buzzed with excitement as she displayed the exoplanet's statistics. HD 985C was a promising candidate, slightly larger than Earth, with a similar gravity and atmospheric composition. Its surface was currently too cold and dry to support life. But with their new techniques, it could become a thriving world in a matter of decades rather than centuries. As the colonization initiative gained momentum, Sean found himself working closely with Dr. Voss on the technical aspects of the mission. Late one night, as they pored over equipment schematics, he caught her stifling a yawn. Ilara nodded, rubbing her eyes. "You're right. But Sean, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you ever afraid? Of what we're doing, I mean. We're changing the face of the galaxy. What if we make a mistake?" Sean considered her question carefully. "I think a healthy dose of fear keeps us cautious. But look at what we've already accomplished. Together, we saved 2 worlds. I believe we can do even more." Ilara's expression softened, and she reached out to squeeze his hand. The moment was interrupted by an urgent alert on Sean's comm device. "Clark here," he answered. Admiral Thule's gravelly voice filled the room. "Sean, we need you and Dr. Voss in the command center immediately. Long-range scans have picked up something concerning." Within minutes, they were standing before a massive holographic display of the solar system. A cluster of unknown objects was approaching from the outer reaches. "An alien fleet," Thule replied, his 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession. "Unlike anything we've encountered before, they're not Zarantine, and they're certainly not human." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They were no longer alone in the galaxy. Over the next few days, tension mounted as the fleet drew closer. Some called for immediate military action, while others argued for a peaceful approach. Sean found himself at the center of the debate, advocating for caution tempered with openness. "We have an opportunity here," he argued before a joint session of human and Zarantine leaders. "Our alliance has proven that different species can work together for mutual benefit. Let's extend that spirit of cooperation to these newcomers." The day of launch arrived, and Sean stood before his assembled crew, a mix of humans and Zarantine, all trained for this historic moment. As they boarded the ship, Sean felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. They were venturing into the unknown, carrying the hopes and fears of 2 worlds on their shoulders. The journey to the edge of the solar system was tense but uneventful. As they approached the rendezvous point, Sean gathered his team for a final briefing. "We'll initiate contact using the protocols we've developed," he explained. "Remember, we're here as ambassadors of peace and cooperation. Let's show them the best of what our alliance can offer." As they prepared to transmit their first message, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Chen's voice came over the comms, tight with urgency. "Sir, we've detected another vessel shadowing us. It's using some kind of stealth technology, but our sensors just picked it up." Sean's blood ran cold. "Can you identify it?" There was a pause before Chen responded. "Sir, it matches the profile of the experimental ship that went missing after Colonel Hayes' escape." The implications were clear. Hayes, driven by his extremist views, was here to sabotage their mission and potentially spark an interstellar war. Sean turned to his team, his mind racing. They had come too far to let one man's hatred derail everything they had worked for. As he opened his mouth to speak, the alien fleet suddenly halted its advance, having detected their approach. As Sean finished speaking, the alien fleet came to a complete stop. The bridge of their ship fell silent, tension thick in the air as they awaited a response. Suddenly, a burst of light erupted from the lead vessel, coalescing into a holographic image of a being unlike any they had encountered before. "Greetings, travelers. We are the Zinthari. We come in peace, seeking new allies in our journey through the stars." Sean stepped forward, his heart pounding with excitement and nervousness. "On behalf of the Human Zarantine Alliance, we welcome you. I am Sean Clark, and we too come in peace." The next few hours were a whirlwind of introductions and preliminary negotiations. The Zinthari, it turned out, were a spacefaring race with advanced technology and a deep commitment to scientific exploration. As discussions progressed, Sean couldn't help but feel a sense of hope and possibility. However, the shadow of Hayes' ship loomed over their meeting. Sean discreetly informed Admiral Thule of the situation, and they agreed to maintain heightened alert without alarming their new alien contacts. As the dialogue with the Zinthari continued, a bold idea began to form in Sean's mind. He turned to Dr. Voss, his eyes alight with excitement. Alara, what if we proposed a joint terraforming mission? It could be the perfect way to showcase our alliance's capabilities and build trust with the Zinthari. Dr. Voss nodded thoughtfully. It's ambitious, but it could work. We'd need to choose the right planet. HD 985C, Sean said without hesitation. It's perfect. Close enough for efficient travel, but challenging enough to really demonstrate what we can do together. The proposal was met with enthusiasm from both the human Zarantine delegation and the Zinthari. Over the next few weeks as they returned to Earth, plans were drawn up for a collaborative effort to transform HD 985C into a habitable world. The mood was optimistic as preparations for the joint mission got underway. However, just as they were finalizing the last details, an urgent message came through from the long-range sensor array. Lieutenant Chen's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim. Sir, we've detected a massive asteroid cluster on a direct collision course with HD 985C. Impact is projected in approximately 3 months. The news sent shockwaves through the command center. Years of planning and the promise of a new era of cooperation were suddenly at risk. Sean felt the weight of all eyes on him as silence fell over the room. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. We're not giving up, not when we've come this far. He turned to address the assembled team of humans, Zarantine and Zinthari. We have the combined knowledge and technology of 3 advanced civilizations. I propose we use it to create a planetary defense grid for HD 985C. Sean outlined his plan, drawing on human weapons technology, Zarantine shield systems, and the ancient alien defenses they had discovered on the Zarantine homeworld. As he spoke, he could see the spark of hope reigniting in the eyes of those around him. The plan was quickly approved, and within days a joint task force was assembled. As they prepared to depart for HD 985C, Sean couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against more than just the asteroid cluster. The memory of Hayes' ship lurked in the back of his mind, a constant reminder of the threats that still existed. The journey to HD 985C was tense but uneventful. As they entered orbit, the true scale of their challenge became apparent. The planet's surface was a swirling mass of storms and electromagnetic disturbances, far more volatile than their initial surveys had suggested. Dr. Voss frowned as she studied the readouts. The planet's magnetic field is highly unstable. It's interfering with our equipment. We'll need to recalibrate everything if we want this to work. Sean nodded, his eyebrows furrowed. Then that's what we'll do. We didn't come this far to be stopped by a few technical difficulties. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Sean worked tirelessly alongside Dr. Voss and the rest of the team, pushing the limits of their combined technologies. They faced setback after setback, but with each obstacle overcome, their perseverance only grew stronger. As the asteroid cluster drew nearer, Sean made a difficult decision. The main deflector array needed manual adjustment, and there was only one way to do it. I'm going out there, he announced, already reaching for his spacesuit. Dr. Voss grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with concern. Sean, it's too dangerous. The magnetic field could disrupt your suit's systems. The spacewalk was even more treacherous than anticipated. Sean fought against the swirling electromagnetic currents, his muscles straining as he made the necessary adjustments to the deflector array. Just as he finished the final calibration, a warning flashed across his helmet display. Sean? Dr. Voss's voice crackled through his comm. A rogue asteroid fragment is heading your way. Get back to the ship now. He turned, seeing the rapidly approaching chunk of space rock. Before he could react, it struck the ship, the impact sending shockwaves through his tether. Sean felt a moment of weightlessness as the line snapped, and then he was drifting, untethered, into the void of space. Panic threatened to overwhelm him as he tumbled through the darkness, but Sean forced himself to remain calm. He knew the team would be working on a rescue plan. All he had to do was conserve his oxygen and wait. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Sean's breath fogged his helmet as he tried to control his rising fear. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught his eye. A small craft was maneuvering towards him, expertly dodging the debris field. Hold on, Sean. Dr. Voss's voice came through his comm, filled with a mix of fear and willpower. I'm coming to get you. With a display of piloting skill that left Sean in awe, Alara guided the craft close enough for him to grab hold. As she pulled him inside, their eyes met through their helmet visors, conveying more than words ever could. Back on the main ship, there was no time for a lengthy reunion. The asteroid cluster was entering the system, and it was time to put their defense grid to the test. Sean took his place at the command console, Dr. Voss at his side. The combined human-Zarantine-Zinthari technology roared to life. Beams of energy lanced out from the planet's surface, meeting the incoming asteroids head-on. Explosions blossomed in the silence of space as rock after rock was vaporized or deflected. For a moment, it seemed like they had succeeded completely. Then alarms blared across the bridge. Multiple impacts detected on the planet's surface, Lieutenant Chen reported, his fingers flying over his console. Smaller fragments made it through the grid. As the dust settled, Sean led an expedition to the impact sites. What they found there defied all expectations. The asteroid fragments had exposed vast deposits of rare minerals, resources that would prove invaluable in their colonization efforts. Standing on the ridge overlooking one of the impact craters, Sean turned to Dr. Voss. The setting sun of HD 985C cast a warm glow over her features, and he was struck by how far they had come together. "We did it, Alara," he said softly. "Against impossible odds, we made it happen." She smiled, reaching out to take his hand. "We're just getting started, Sean. There's a whole galaxy out there waiting for us." As they stood there, looking out over the landscape of their new world, neither of them could have guessed at the challenges that still lay ahead. In the shadows of their triumph, unseen forces were already moving against them, threatening to unravel everything they had fought so hard to achieve. But for now, in this moment, they had hope, and sometimes that was enough to change the course of history. The success of HD 985C's colonization efforts spread rapidly across the galaxy. Within months, the planet became a symbol of interspecies cooperation, attracting settlers from Earth, Zarantine, and Zinthari alike. Sean Clark and Dr. Alara Voss found themselves at the heart of this burgeoning community, working tirelessly to ensure its prosperity. One crisp morning, Sean stood atop the colony's central command tower, surveying the bustling settlement below. The sight of humans, Zarantine and Zinthari working side by side filled him with pride. Alara joined him, her hand brushing against his. "It's remarkable, isn't it?" she said, her eyes scanning the horizon. "A year ago, this was just a barren rock." Sean nodded, a smile playing on his lips. "We've come so far, but I can't shake the feeling that—" His words were cut short by a deafening alarm. Red lights flashed across the command center as Lieutenant Chen's voice crackled over the intercom. "Multiple unidentified ships entering the system. They're not responding to hails." Sean's instincts kicked in immediately. "Sound the evacuation alarm. Get all non-essential personnel to the shelters." As chaos erupted around them, Sean and Alara raced to the command center. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a terrifying sight: a fleet of ships, a mishmash of human, Zarantine, and Zinthari designs, bearing down on HD 985C. The first volley of weapon fire from the purest fleet lit up the sky, impacting the planet's defensive shields. The entire colony shook with the force of the assault. "Shields holding at 82%, Chen reported, his fingers flying over the controls. "But they won't last long under this barrage." Sean turned to Alara, his expression grim. "We need to buy time for the evacuation. How quickly can we get our defense systems online?" Dr. Voss was already pulling up schematics on her datapad. "The main orbital cannons will take at least an hour to charge. We have some ground-based defenses, but they're not designed for this kind of assault." "Then, we improvise," Sean declared. He opened a channel to all colony frequencies. "Attention, all personnel. This is Sean Clark. We are under attack by isolationist forces. I need every available engineer and technician to report to defense stations immediately. We're going to give these purists a fight they won't forget." As the colonists mobilized, Sean noticed something odd about the enemy's attack pattern. Their weapons seemed familiar. Too familiar. Alara, look at this, he said, pulling up a tactical display. The energy signature of their main cannons. It's almost identical to the weapon we used against the Zarantine fleet years ago. Unless they have someone on the inside, Sean finished grimly. We'll deal with that later. Right now, we need to focus on survival. The next hours were a blur of frantic activity. Sean coordinated the defense efforts from the command center, while Ilara worked with a team of engineers to repurpose mining equipment into makeshift weapons. The colonists fought back with everything they had, using their intimate knowledge of the planet's terrain to their advantage. Despite their valiant efforts, the situation grew increasingly dire. The Purist fleet vastly outnumbered them, and their defenses were crumbling under the relentless assault. Sean, we can't hold out much longer, Ilara reported, her voice strained. Our shields are down to 15%. Sean's mind raced, considering their options. Then his eyes fell on the hangar-based schematics, where a prototype ship sat waiting, a vessel that combined the best technology from all three species. We're not beaten yet, he said, a plan forming in his mind. Ilara, come with me. Chen, you have command of the ground forces. Ilara's eyes widened. Sean, that ship hasn't even completed its test flights. We have no idea if it will hold up in combat. Then we'll be the test pilots, Sean replied, his voice filled with persistence. It's our only shot. Minutes later, they were strapped into the sleek vessel, its systems humming to life around them. Sean's hands flew over the controls, marveling at the responsiveness of the ship. Here goes nothing, he muttered, engaging the engines. The prototype shot out of the hangar like a bullet, accelerating towards the Purist fleet. Sean weaved through the debris field, dodging enemy fire with a precision that left Ilara breathless. As they approached the enemy ships, Sean opened a communication channel. This is Sean Clark of the HD 985C colony. Cease your attack immediately, or we will be forced to defend ourselves. The view screen flickered, and a face appeared that made Sean's blood run cold. Dr. Avery Holt, his old mentor, stared back at him with cold dedication. Sean, Holt said, his voice tinged with disappointment, I had hoped you would see reason. This alliance you've built, it's an abomination. Humanity must stand alone, or we risk losing everything that makes us unique. Sean shook his head, disbelief etched on his face. Avery, but you died during the Zarantine invasion. How? Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated, Holt replied with a bitter smile. I've spent years building this movement, gathering like-minded individuals from all species who understand the threat of this so-called unity. And now we will put an end to this misguided experiment. Holt cut the transmission, and immediately the Purist fleet opened fire on Sean's ship. The prototype's advanced shields held, but the impact sent them spiraling. Sean! Ilara called out, her fingers dancing over the tactical controls. Our weapons are charged! What's our play? Sean gritted his teeth, bringing the ship under control. We need to disable Holt's command vessel without destroying it. If we can capture him, maybe we can end this without further bloodshed. What followed was a dizzying battle of tactical maneuvers and split-second decisions. Sean pushed the prototype to its limits, using every trick he had learned in his years of combat. Ilara provided crucial support, her scientific mind finding weaknesses in the enemy ships that Sean exploited ruthlessly. Just as it seemed they might prevail, a massive energy surge from Holt's ship caught them off guard. The prototype's shields flickered, and alarms blared throughout the cockpit. Direct hit to our starboard engine, Ilara reported, her voice tense. We're losing power fast. Sean's mind raced, searching for a solution. Then, through the chaos of the battle, he spotted a familiar silhouette emerging from warp space. It's Admiral Thule, he exclaimed, relief washing over him. The cavalry has arrived. A swarm of allied ships poured into the system. Human, Zarantine, and Zinthari vessels fighting side by side. The tide of battle shifted instantly. The Purist fleet caught between the hammer of Thule's task force and the anvil of Sean's prototype. Seizing the moment, Sean executed a daring maneuver. He brought their damaged ship alongside Holt's command vessel, close enough for Ilara to activate their experimental boarding technology. This is our chance, Sean said, unstrapping himself from the pilot's seat. I'm going over there to end this. Ilara caught his arm, her eyes filled with concern and something deeper. Sean, wait, I'm coming with you. Together they materialized on Holt's bridge, weapons at the ready. The Purist leader stood before them, defiance etched on his face even as his fleet crumbled around him. It's over, Avery, Sean said, his voice firm but not unkind. Surrender, and we can end this without any more loss of life. For a moment it seemed Holt might refuse. Then slowly he lowered his head in defeat. You don't understand what you've done, Sean. The price of this unity will be higher than you can imagine. As Sean secured Holt, Ilara sent the surrender signal to the Purist fleet. One by one, the enemy ships powered down their weapons. The battle for HD 985C was over. In the days that followed, the true scale of their victory became apparent. The Interstellar Council convened an emergency session on HD 985C, recognizing the planet's crucial role in preserving the Alliance. Sean and Ilara found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of diplomacy and reconstruction efforts. Standing on the balcony of the newly constructed council chambers, Sean watched as ships from all three species descended from the sky, bringing fresh waves of colonists and supplies. Ilara joined him, her hand finding his. Sean nodded, his eyes on the horizon. We did. But Holt's words keep echoing in my mind. What if this is just the beginning? Ilara squeezed his hand. Then we'll face it together. All of us. As the sun set on HD 985C, Sean knew that their journey was not nearly finished. The Purists had been defeated, but the challenge of forging a lasting peace between three vastly different species remained. Yet looking out at the thriving colony, a living symbol of cooperation, he felt a spark of hope. The next chapter of their adventure was just beginning, and Sean Clark was ready to face whatever the galaxy might throw at them next.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.